Let's thank our sponsors again. Would you give them a round of applause? Thank you so much. My name is Jerry Johnson, and I'm president of NRB, and I want to welcome you to this worship service. And as we begin to transition now, I want us to think about testimony, the power of testimony, particularly a testimony of God's faithfulness through the generations, through the centuries. You know, I shared a letter from my family last night. Well, you're going to hear one that will top that by a couple of hundred years. I have my friend here, Dr. Jim Leininger, and he has a unique testimony about how God has worked in a family to save. A testimony about a book, about a movie, about a song, and it is absolutely fascinating. You've heard of Alone, Yet Not Alone. Now you're going to hear the backstory. Jim, tell us about your family and that story. Would you do it?
Thank you very much, Dr. Johnson. This story literally is a story of God's faithfulness over 250 years. 250 years ago, a little over that, at the very start of the French and Indian War on the frontier of Pennsylvania, there were three little girls who were victims of the very first attack in the entire history of Pennsylvania when the Indians attacked the settlers. Their families were killed. They were taken captive and ultimately taken 300 miles on into Ohio, where they were to become little Indian maidens. And two of the girls, sisters, Barbara and Regina, were 12 and 9. And Marie Leroy, their best friend and nearest neighbor, was also 12. And the two little girls' name was Barbara and Regina Leininger. And my mom found this story years later, as I'll tell you, and it was quite amazing to me to find out that we had relatives that actually had been through this grueling challenge. When Barbara and Marie were taken to an Indian village all the way into Ohio, at what today is the city of Zanesville, Ohio. We know the exact location of the village. They, after 3.5 years in captivity, were expected to marry an Indian brave and begin to make babies. That's why they were taken in the first place. So they decided that they didn't want to do that they were going to try to escape, even though they knew it was almost impossible. They'd been taken 300 miles into the wilderness, had no idea where to go. But they joined with two English boys, decided to make an escape, even though they knew the penalty for that was death. And they took off running one day in a very exciting, harrowing, desperate attempt to escape. Regina, on the other hand, was 9 and was taken off to a village by herself and didn't have any input from any English or German-speaking people for almost 10 years. A man by the name of Colonel Bouquet went into Ohio 10 years later, almost 10 years later, attacked the Indian villages. They sued for peace, and he required that they return all the captives. There were over 2,200 known children and women that had been taken captive. So they agreed. They returned over 200 of the captives. And back in Pennsylvania, the captives came back to Fort Carlisle, and Reverend Muhlenberg, who was known as the patriarch or the father of the Lutheran Church in America, rushed to tell Mama Leininger that maybe Regina was among the captives. So she rushed to Fort Carlisle. She was looking for her daughter, calling Regina, couldn't find her. She was looking for a little 9-year-old girl. Instead, she had a full-grown Indian daughter there. And so she couldn't find her. Turns out that Regina had forgotten all the English, all the German, and even her name. So when she called Regina, she couldn't find her. And it's an amazing story, probably the most endearing Indian captive story ever in the history of America. The way that an old German hymn called Alone Yet Not Alone was used to reunite the mother and daughter. Once Regina got back with her mother, Mother wanted a Bible. Their Bible had been burned up in the cabin when the Indians attacked. Mother and the younger son had gone to the mill to get the corn ground, and they were spared. And so they wanted to have a family Bible. They walked 75 miles into Philadelphia to find Pastor Muhlenberg. And when they got there, Pastor Muhlenberg says, yes, I have Bibles, but what good would it do? She doesn't speak or understand or read German, so what good would it do? Mama Leininger said, let me see a Bible. And she would read the first few words of a verse that Regina had memorized 10 years before as a little child, and Regina would finish it in perfect German. And so Pastor Muhlenberg was completely astounded and wrote a passionate letter back to the church in Germany saying, we have got to teach the Word of God to the children, because if this girl did not forget the Word of God after 10 years and the just terrible, grueling circumstances she's been through, they will never forget it. So he told the story of Regina and her mother and wrote the letter to the church. Fast forward 225 years, a researcher for the Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod, found the story, found the letter, and wrote it up in the monthly magazine, which my mother read. She invited us to dinner, and after dinner read the story to us. We were all amazed by it, but my youngest daughter, Tracy, decided at age 9 that she was going to write a book about that when she grew up. And she's here with us today.
Stand up, would you, Tracy?
Tracy, stand
Let's
up.
welcome
for us.
Tracy.
Thank you.
Welcome.
She didn't tell us, but she wrote a little outline of what she was going to do. And then years later, when she graduated, she said, Daddy, I want to write a book about Barbara and Regina. Would you go with me to Pennsylvania where we could research it? So we landed in Philadelphia. We rented a car and drove all the way through all the historical sites and did all the research. It's amazing what is still there, the historical detail. And she wrote the book. Even without any marketing, she got married and started having babies, so there was basically no marketing at all of the book. And it continued to sell. And about 5 years ago, 3 different guys who were movie makers came to me and said, this is a great story. We need to make a movie of it. So through a whole sequence of events, I'm a retired emergency room physician. Didn't know anything about making movies and never thought I would get involved with that. But the movie was made. And the amazing thing is that when we asked Joni Eareckson Tada to sing the theme song, we never realized what God could do. And obviously she did an amazing job and was nominated for an Academy Award. It was phenomenally popular. The Hollywood Reporter, which is a newspaper that goes out to all the Hollywood in crowd, had it immediately at 56% of the people said they liked that best of the 5 songs that were nominated. It grew every day over the next 2 weeks until 2 weeks later, 82% of the people in Hollywood, this is not the Christian right, the Hollywood insiders, 82% said they liked Alone Yet Not Alone the best. And the other 4 songs were in the single digits. So I really think that a lot of people in Hollywood said, that were members of the Academy, said they thought it was blatant anti-Christian activity. I really think it was an embarrassment to the big studios that this little small-budget Christian song by Joni Eareckson Tada was blowing them away on the charts. But whatever their motivation was, we'll never know. But God has used that. Millions of people all over the world have seen Joni's prayer and her song on the internet. Nobody but God could do that.
Thank you, Jim. You know, what a testimony. Now, a couple of things. Right after the worship service, we're opening the exhibit hall, and we all need to go down there and see all the exhibits. But your team will be at 2:30. Is that right? At booth 2:30. If you want to know more about the book, more about the movie, more about the story, to meet the folks behind it, you need to come by and see Dr. Leininger, his wife Cecilia, and their team, their daughter. And thank you for coming. Now, let me just remind you, this song, if you've seen the film or read the book, this is the song that the mother sang when the name was not recognized. This is the song when she began to sing this song, that daughter who had been captive for 10 years recognized this hymn, this great song. This was the song that brought them back together. You'll want to see this film. And as I said last night, we'll want to support this film. We'll want to go out and take others to this film. It's so important when it's launched this spring that we're there to support it and to stand with you. And we want to welcome Joni to the stage. Joni is coming, and she's celebrating 35 years of Christian ministry. Let's welcome Joni Eareckson Tada to the platform. Joni, we love you. God bless you. And let's hear Alone Yet Not Alone. God bless you, Dr. Leininger.
I'm alone, yet not alone. God's the light that will guide me home. With His love and tenderness, leading through the wilderness, and wherever I may roam, I'm alone, yet not alone. I will not be bent in fear. He's the refuge I know is near. In His strength I find my own. By His faithfulness He's shown. That so mighty is His shield, or His love is now revealed. When my steps are lost and desperate for a guide, I can feel His touch, a soothing presence by my side. Alone, yet not alone, not forsaken when on my own. I can lean upon His arm and be lifted
God bless you all. Happy Sunday.